Let's get started with today's story. When Mia and I moved into Maplewood Estates, I thought it was the perfect way to begin a new chapter. The past year had been stressful for both of us. Me, working overtime to secure the down payment for the house, and Mia, juggling freelance work with her art projects. She always said she dreamed of living somewhere quiet and safe. I wanted to give her that, even if it meant sacrificing my own peace of mind. At first, the neighborhood seemed idyllic. Picture-perfect homes, kids riding their bikes, neighbors waving as they trimmed their hedges. But if I'd known what lay ahead, I never would have signed those papers. It all started innocently enough. Dan, the guy next door, was one of the first to introduce himself. He was the kind of guy you couldn't help but notice. Tall, broad shoulders, and a cocky grin that screamed, "I know I'm good-looking." "Welcome to the neighborhood," he said, extending a hand the day we moved in. "If you need anything, tools, advice, a cold beer, just let me know." Mia lit up when she met him. "Thank you. It's so nice to meet someone friendly right away." "Isn't he nice, Liam?" I shook Dan's hand, smiling politely. "Yeah, nice to meet you." But something about him set me on edge from the start. Maybe it was the way his eyes lingered on Mia just a little too long, or maybe it was the way he seemed too polished, like he'd practiced every word he said in front of a mirror. At first, I tried to brush off my unease. Mia loved our new home, and I didn't want to spoil it by being paranoid. But Dan seemed to be everywhere. When I came home from work, there he was, chatting with Mia as she watered the garden. On weekends, he'd stop by with an offer to help fix something, our squeaky fence gate, her bike, even a dripping faucet in the kitchen. "He's just being nice," Mia said one evening when I voiced my concerns. "He's being too nice," I countered. "I don't trust him." She laughed. "You're jealous. It's kind of cute, but unnecessary. Dan's just a neighbor, Liam. Relax." Things escalated quickly after that. Mia started spending more and more time with Dan. "He's so handy," she gushed one night over dinner. "He fixed the lawnmower in 5 minutes. Can you believe that?" "Yeah, amazing," I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. She frowned. "You could be more grateful. It's not like you have the time to do everything around here." That stung, but I let it go. Then came the nights when she'd invite him over for dinner. I hated sitting across the table, watching them joke and laugh like old friends. She'd brush it off when I brought it up. "He's fun to be around, Liam. Don't be so uptight." The tipping point came one Saturday afternoon. I'd planned to take Mia out for lunch, but when I got home, I found Dan in the living room holding a glass of iced tea. Mia turned to me, her face lighting up. "Oh, hey." Dan stopped by to show me some sketches for the landscaping project he's doing. "Isn't he talented?" "Great. Can we talk for a minute, Mia?" Her smile faltered. "Now, Liam? We're in the middle of—" "Now," I said, my voice sharp. I led her into the kitchen, keeping my voice low. "What is going on?" I demanded. "Why is he always here?" She folded her arms. "You're overreacting. He's a neighbor, and he's helping us. Why do you always assume the worst?" "Because he's acting like he lives here." Her eyes narrowed. "Maybe if you weren't working all the time, I wouldn't have to rely on him so much." I was stunned. "Rely on him for what, Mia? Emotional support? Or something else?" She stormed out of the room without answering. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind raced with possibilities, each one worse than the last. Was I imagining things, or was something really happening between Mia and Dan? The next day, while Mia was out running errands, I did something I never thought I'd do. I installed a small, hidden camera in the living room. I felt sick as I set it up, but I had to know the truth. For the next few days, I forced myself to act normal. I avoided bringing up Dan. I kissed Mia goodbye before work, made small talk over dinner, and even joked about the nosy old couple across the street. All the while, the camera recorded every moment in that living room. Each night, after Mia fell asleep, I'd slip out of bed and check the footage on my laptop. Most of it was mundane. Mia watching TV, scrolling through her phone, or sketching on the couch. For a brief moment, I wondered if I was wrong, if I'd let my jealousy create a problem that didn't exist. But then came Wednesday evening. I had to work late that night, but the camera didn't miss a thing. When I checked the footage later, my heart sank. Dan showed up just minutes after I left the house. At first, it seemed innocent enough. He and Mia sat on the couch chatting. She laughed at something he said, her hand resting casually on her knee. But then, Dan leaned in closer. "You know," he said, his voice low, "you're too good for him." Mia tilted her head, confused. "What are you talking about?" "Liam. He doesn't appreciate you the way you deserve. A woman like you should be with someone who puts you first." Mia gave a nervous laugh. "Dan, stop. You don't mean that." "I do." He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I've been wanting to say this for weeks. I care about you, Mia. More than I should." I watched in stunned silence as Mia hesitated. For a moment, I thought she'd push him away, tell him to leave. Instead, she leaned forward and kissed him. I stared at the screen, my hands trembling. My breath came in short, ragged gasps as I replayed the footage, hoping I had imagined it, hoping there was some logical explanation that didn't end with my wife betraying me. But there was no mistake, no misunderstanding. Mia had kissed Dan. My stomach churned, a sickening mix of rage and heartbreak twisting inside me. My mind screamed for action. Confront her, confront him, burn the whole damn house down if I had to. But I forced myself to sit there, fists clenched, as the video played on. Mia pulled back first. "Dan." "I can't," she whispered, shaking her head. "I love Liam." Dan's smirk didn't waver. "If you really did, you wouldn't have kissed me back." She looked away, guilt flashing across her face. "It was a mistake. You should go." "Fine," he said, standing up, but not before leaning down one last time. "But you and I both know this isn't over." With that, he walked out the door, leaving Mia alone in the dimly lit living room. She buried her face in her hands, sitting there for what felt like an eternity before finally standing up and heading to bed. I shut the laptop, my pulse pounding in my ears. This wasn't just paranoia. It wasn't just jealousy. My wife had betrayed me. Maybe not entirely yet, but the line had been crossed, and there was no coming back from it. I clenched my jaw, breathing heavily as I tried to decide what to do next. The confrontation. The next morning, I acted like nothing had happened. It took everything in me to mask my fury, to pretend I hadn't watched my wife hesitate before pushing Dan away. I needed to play this carefully. If I exploded now, she'd find a way to twist it, to make me the bad guy. But if I waited, if I planned, I could make them both regret ever taking me for a fool. Mia greeted me with her usual morning routine: coffee, a peck on the cheek, a forced smile. I wondered if she even felt guilty or if she had already convinced herself that last night had meant nothing. "You okay?" she asked, frowning slightly. "You look tired." I forced a chuckle. "Long night at work." She nodded, sipping her coffee. "Well, at least it's the weekend. We should do something together. Go to that new Italian place you wanted to try." The sheer audacity of it nearly made me laugh. She was trying to pretend everything was normal, trying to cover her guilt with date nights and sweet gestures. "Yeah," I said. "That sounds good." I was playing the long game now. She didn't know that I knew, and that gave me the upper hand. Setting the trap. The next few days, I started gathering everything I needed. I downloaded copies of the footage and backed them up in multiple places. I started watching Mia more closely, noting every glance at her phone, every text she deleted, every time she mentioned needing to run out for errands. And Dan. He had no idea what was coming. A few nights later, I made my move. Mia had gone to bed early, exhausted from working on a new painting. I knew exactly what that meant. She had spent the day wrestling with her guilt, trying to convince herself that nothing had changed between us. I picked up my phone and sent a text to Dan from a burner number. "Hey, we need to talk. Meet me at the old construction site behind the estate. Midnight." Dan took the bait. He responded within minutes. "Who is this?" "You know who. I saw everything." A pause. Then, after a long minute, "Fine. Be there." I smirked, tossing my phone onto the table. Now, it was just a waiting game. Dan thought he was coming to smooth things over, to try and manipulate his way out of it. But I wasn't planning on talking.